This pregnant woman was walking along the road. Suddenly an out-of-control car crashed into her. In the nick of time, she turned her body to protect her baby with both hands, but in the end she couldn't avoid the accident. She fell to the ground in pain and kept begging passers-by to save her baby. Finally, the baby was rescued by the doctors, but Yuli's eyes closed forever when she heard the baby's cries. But she gave up her chance to be reincarnated. She chose to stay with her daughter as a ghost. She stayed with her for 5 years. Although she couldn't wish her daughter well on her birthday, she couldn't kiss her cheek when she was asleep, but she's content to be with her daughter in this way. But behind that contentment was a terrible price to pay. That day, she noticed that when the Xiaoyu passed her by, she unexpectedly paused for a moment, and then ran straight past her. She couldn't believe her eyes, so she cautiously called out her daughter's name, but what she didn't expect was an answer from her daughter. Now she was completely dumbfounded. She couldn't understand how a 5-year-old girl could see ghosts, so she rushed to ask the witch. The witch told Yuli, "It's because you've been around her for a long time, that's why she sees ghosts." Yuli asked her if there was a solution to the problem, but there was nothing the witch could do. She was going to take one last look at her daughter and leave her, but suddenly she heard the teachers say that her daughter had disappeared. It turns out that due to her young age, Xiaoyu's qi was weak. She can't distinguish between humans and ghosts. She ran away with the ghost of a little boy. When she found out her daughter had disappeared, Yuli searched everywhere for her, but there was no sign of Xiaoyu anywhere. When she was in a state of anxiety, the boy's ghost suddenly came out of the refrigerator. She rushed to check it out. Sure enough, she found Xiaoyu here. Seeing Xiaoyu lying weakly in the refrigerator, Yuli was heartbroken and helpless. She called out to the teacher for help, but no one could see her. Yuli went back to the refrigerator and tried to pull her daughter up with her hands, but her hands passed through her daughter's body like air. She shouted her daughter's name over and over again. At that moment, Xiaoyu seemed to hear her mother's cries. She gently kicked open the refrigerator. This scene was seen by a passing teacher. They rushed Xiaoyu to the hospital. At the hospital, Yuli cried on her knees in remorse. She kept saying she was sorry. She really didn't think she'd cause her daughter to become like this. At first, she just wanted to see Xiaoyu learn to walk before she left, but later, she couldn't bear to leave her. After leaving the hospital, Yuli walked alone in the crowded streets. As she watched everyone else walking in pairs, she couldn't hold it in any longer. She cursed God for doing this to her. Why was she the only one who couldn't be with her daughter? Then snow suddenly fell from the sky. Strangely enough, a snowflake landed safely on her shoulder. She could really feel the impact of the passers-by on her shoulder. Did a miracle happen? This deceased woman suddenly discovered that she had come back to life. Now she can not only feel the cold, she can touch snowflakes. Passers-by could see her. She was so happy, but after she was happy, she began to wonder, why had she come back to life after 5 years of death? Then the witch told Yuli, because she had insulted the heavens, she was judged by them. Heaven punished her with 49 days of resurrection. If she can regain her original position within 49 days, she could live. If she couldn't complete the task within the time limit, she would die again. Yuli found it very difficult. Her husband had a new wife, Minjing. In the 5 years since her death, she had seen Minjing treat Xiaoyu like her own daughter. She couldn't bear to hurt Minjing. She had planned to visit her parents, but she remembered that her mother had a heart condition. She was worried that her mother wouldn't be able to handle the shock, and she couldn't go back to the funeral home. Yuli had no choice but to go to her best friend's store. The key was still in the same place. The next day, when she arrived at the store, she found her money missing, but Yuli was enjoying her snacks on her best friend's money. It's been a long time since she's had this kind of food. While she was eating happily, suddenly, her husband's voice came out of her ear. Yuli was so scared that she hid herself. Luckily, Changhua didn't see her, but he left his nameplate on the cart. Yuli saw it and took it to the front desk of the hospital where Changhua worked. At that moment, Changhua's best friend came to the hospital lobby. He suddenly saw Yuli. His eyes widened in surprise and disbelief. Then he hurriedly closed his eyes to check again, but when he opened his eyes, Yuli was gone. He thought he was mistaken and fled the lobby in fear. When Changhua received his nameplate, he saw the graffiti on it. Yuli had drawn it on the bus as a habit. When she tried to erase it, she realized she couldn't. Changhua saw it was Yuli's handwriting right away. He panicked and asked his friend who sent it to him. Suddenly, someone pushed in the door. There was an emergency at the hospital. All the other doctors were in surgery. They had to find Changhua to save the patient. But the moment Yuli died on the operating table, Changhua became terrified of the operating room. He hasn't been on the operating table since then. He wasn't sure he could do it, and he failed. Luckily, other doctors were able to save the patient in time, which prevented a medical incident. Changhua felt guilty about the patient. When she saw the nameplate, he started to think about Yuli again. Changhua came to see Yuli at the funeral parlor after work. He thought back to the good times he had with Yuli. At that moment, his current wife called. Xiaoyu had disappeared again. 5-year-old daughter suddenly disappeared. The father searched anxiously for her, but suddenly he saw a scene that shocked him. The woman holding his daughter in her arms was his wife, who had been dead for 5 years. She had miraculously come back to life. When Yuli came back to life, she went to the kindergarten to see Xiaoyu, but she saw Xiaoyu playing with the ghost of that child again. Yuli was worried that Xiaoyu was in danger. She wanted to chase the ghost away, but she didn't expect Xiaoyu to run into her arms. Yuli was touched. This was the kind of hug she dreamed of when she was a ghost, but at that time, she was never able to embrace Xiaoyu. This time she could finally feel Drizzle's soft and supple body. Yuli cried with emotion. At that moment, the teacher came over. She thought of Yuli as Xiaoyu's babysitter. Xiaoyu could see Yuli's ghost, so she knew Yuli very well. She took Yuli's hand in hers. Yuli was happy to take Xiaoyu home. When Xiaoyu reached the park, she wanted to stay and play for a while. Yuli pushed Xiaoyu on the swings and doted on her. She was enjoying her time with Drizzle. As the swing got higher and higher, Xiaoyu accidentally fell off the swing. Yuli was so distressed that she picked up Xiaoyu and anxiously examined her injuries. At the same time, she cried and blamed herself. At that moment, the anxious Changhua came over. He saw the scene. He couldn't believe his eyes. He couldn't be sure what he saw was real. When Yuli saw Changhua, he let go of Xiaoyu and turned around to leave. Changhua anxiously ran up to stop Yuli. Yuli said, "You're looking at the wrong person." But that doesn't fool Changhua. Changhua looked at Yuli with tears in his eyes. He couldn't believe that the love of his life, whom he buried with his own hands, was still alive. Changhua handed Xiaoyu over to Minjing and rushed off to find Yuli. They arrived at the restaurant. Yuli was torn between telling Changhua everything, but she was afraid she'd scare him away. Yuli habitually bites on the straw of her drink. It's a subconscious gesture when she's nervous. When Changhua saw this, he was sure it was Yuli. Yuli had no choice but to lie and say she had lost her memory. Although Changhua still found it a bit hard to believe, but he still chose to believe Yuli. Changhua arranged for Yuli to stay in a hotel and gave her a bank card. He told Yuli not to leave the hotel. Yuli used Changhua's credit card to buy a lot of delicious food. She was happy to enjoy the food. After eating, Yuli started to worry again. Now she only had 49 days left. She had to get rid of the ghost of the boy in the kindergarten. She couldn't let Xiaoyu get into danger. This woman wanted to visit her daughter in the kindergarten. But when she arrived at the hotel lobby, she saw many ghosts. The witch once told her, "If you see ghosts, you must pretend not to see them. Otherwise things will get very troublesome." Then 3 ghosts saw Yuli. They were her best friends when she was a ghost. They chased after her and greeted her. But Yuli pretended not to hear them. They wouldn't stop pestering her. Yuli had no choice but to leave. But the woman suddenly sat down on the ground and cried. Yuli's heart was softened. She told them the truth about her resurrection. They began to beg Yuli to fulfill their unfulfilled wish. But Yuli only had 49 days. She had to help her daughter return to normal, so she didn't have time to fulfill other ghosts' wishes. But they started to pester her. They threatened that if she didn't help them, they'd tell all the ghosts about her resurrection. Yuli got angry and argued with them, but it was so loud. All the ghosts in the neighborhood heard it. All the ghosts asked Yuli to fulfill their wishes. Yuli ran away as fast as she could, and the ghosts chased after her. Finally, Yuli hid behind a car and lost them. When Yuli was about to leave, she saw her mother. She realized her mother's joints were hurting again. Yuli's heart ached too, but she didn't dare to see her mom. She only had 49 days to live. She wasn't sure if she'd survive. At that moment, Chanhua came to the hotel to look for Yuli. When he realized she wasn't at the hotel, he started to panic. He sat in the lobby waiting for Yuli. Suddenly, he received a message on his cell phone about Yuri's purchase of maintenance products. He guessed that Yuli was going home to visit her parents, so he called Yuli's sister and told them to be prepared. But when he arrived at Yuli's house, he found that Yuli had just put the products outside the door. Yuli's sister thought it was Changhua who had sent the products. Changhua left without explanation. In order to get rid of the ghosts around her daughter, she applied for a job at the kindergarten where Xiaoyu went to school, so she could protect her daughter. That's when she saw Xiaoyu. Yuli was going to play with Xiaoyu for a while. After a while, Chanhua came to pick up Xiaoyu from school. He saw Yuli playing with Xiaoyu. He understood how Yuli missed her daughter, so he didn't disturb Yuli's short-lived happiness. He left in silence. As Changhua walked aimlessly down the street, he received a message that his wife was going to pick up Xiaoyu, because Minjing had seen Yuli's photos before, so she knew Yuli. Chanhua hurriedly called Minjing to tell her he would pick up Xiaoyu, but Minjing had already arrived at the kindergarten. Xiaoyu ran out anxiously when she saw her mom. At that moment, Yuli also came out. In order to drive away the ghosts around her daughter, Yuli asked the witch for a talisman. She wanted to use it to drive away the ghost of the little boy in the kindergarten. When Yuli arrived outside the classroom, she saw Xiaoyu playing with the boy again. The boy was smiling happily at Yuli. Then he ran out of the classroom. Yuli ran after him. She found the boy in the refrigerator in the kitchen. He smiled at Yuli. Yuli couldn't bear to hurt him, but for her daughter's safety, she told the boy she was sorry. Then she aimed the charm at him, but what she didn't realize was that the talisman wouldn't work on the boy. The boy was so happy that he thought she was playing with him. Then Yuli found red beans in the kitchen. It said that ghosts are afraid of red beans, and red beans hurt when they hit ghosts. Yuli told the boy to leave if he felt the pain. Then she threw the beans at the boy, but to her surprise, the beans didn't work. Yuli tried to throw more red beans, but it only made the boy have more fun. This made Yuli feel very strange. After leaving the kitchen, Yuli suddenly saw a picture of the boy's family on the wall. It turned out that the boy had been a student at the kindergarten. He didn't know he was dead, so he refused to leave the kindergarten. When the parents of the other children came to pick them up, the boy sat alone in the corner and cried. When Yuli saw him, she finally realized why he wouldn't leave. He was waiting for his mom to pick him up, but it's a pity that his mom couldn't see his ghost. She didn't know that her son had been waiting for her. After school, Yuli went to the boy and called his name. The boy smiled happily. Yuli decided to help him see his mom, but ever since the boy died, his mother has been afraid to enter the kindergarten. Looking at all the familiar things in front of her, the boy's mom felt like her son was right in front of her. She was so sad that she cried. With Yuli's help, she found the courage to ring the kindergarten doorbell. When the boy saw his long-awaited face on the security camera, he ran out screaming for his mom. He finally waited for his mom to pick him up. He ran happily to his mom, and Xiaoyu ran out after the little boy. Xiaoyu wanted to return his toy to him, but neither of them could see the boy. The teacher was puzzled. The boy's mom looked at the toy car and saw that it looked familiar. She realized that her son's name was written on the cart. This was the boy's favorite toy. The mom wept. She asked Xiaoyu if anyone was here. Xiaoyu didn't say anything and nodded silently. Mom understood everything in an instant. The boy hugged his crying mom and comforted her. Then he followed his mom and left the kindergarten. Yuli finally solved Xiaoyu's danger for the time being, but when she was about to leave the kindergarten, she saw a familiar face. This woman suddenly meets her long-dead best friend. She was overwhelmed by the shock. Her name is Xianqing. She was Yuli's best friend before she died. With her help, Yuli and Xianhua were able to fall in love during college. When Yuli died, she was seriously ill and insisted on going to see her off despite her family's advice. She didn't expect to meet Yuli alive again 5 years later. At the same time, her husband spotted Yuli on the store's surveillance camera. He was terrified. He desperately wanted to call Xianqing, but he couldn't calm his fear. He told himself there were no ghosts in the world. But how could Yuli appear in the surveillance camera? Just when he didn't know what to do, his wife came back. He told her that he saw Yuli, but he didn't realize that Yuli was right behind her. He was even more flustered. Yuli greeted him awkwardly. He thought she was a ghost and ran away. Xianqing and Yuli hugged each other and cried. This is the surprise of their reunion and their deep longing for each other. Dunshang sent a message to Qianhua asking him if it was true. The four of them finally met again after 5 years. Dunshang was still in disbelief. He asked Yuli some questions that only the four of them knew. Then he finally believed that Yuli had come back to life. Xianqing asked Yuli if she really didn't remember anything. Yuli had no choice but to keep hiding the truth. Xianqing didn't want Yuli to stay in the hotel and asked her to go home. Yuli said she couldn't stay there because her mom had a heart condition and couldn't handle the shock. She couldn't let her parents know she was alive. Xianqing asked Yuli to move in with her, but Yuli didn't know if she'd be alive forever. She didn't want Xianqing to experience her departure again. She asked everyone to wait 49 days. After 49 days, she'd decide where to live. Xianqing won't force her anymore, as long as Yuli was still alive. Once again, she hugged Yuli and cried. After the restaurant, Changhua took Yuli back to the hotel. Changhua told Yuli he was sorry. When he saw Yuli, he was so scared that he sat on the floor. Now he's found a new mom for Xiaoyu. He couldn't let Yuli go home to recognize Xiaoyu. Changhua apologized to Yuli. Yuli suddenly remembered the first night Changhua arranged for her to stay in a hotel. She received calls from the front desk for various reasons. The next day, when she asked the front desk about it, she realized that Xianhua had asked the front desk to make those calls. He was afraid that Yuli would disappear again. Yuli's arrival rekindles the love for Yuri in Changhua's heart. Yuli also feels sorry for Changhua. That day, Minjing found a lot of red beans in Xiaoyu's backpack. Minjing was puzzled. The red beans are Yuli's weapon to help her daughter drive away the ghosts. She smashed the red beans hard on the ghosts. Then she told them to stay away from the kindergarten. Yuli told them that from now on, no one was allowed to enter the kindergarten. They also tried to resist her, but when they saw the talisman and the red beans in her hand, they backed down. Not only that, Yuli stole the witch's bell. This bell can control them. Now they got scared and left. That day, the kindergarten held a parent-child activity. All the parents were there. When the children started playing, the chef asked Yuli to bring the red beans into the classroom. Yuli bumped into Minjing. Minjing was a bit confused, but she didn't think much of it. When the children were playing the game with the red beans, a parent kept scolding Xiaoyu. She said that Xiaoyu stole her son's red beans. Just when Xianqing wanted to protect Xiaoyu, Yuli threw a spoonful of red beans on the woman's head and said that's how the game should be played. The parent was furious, but she could only stop. Yuli went to the kitchen in anger. The cook asked her to bring the strawberries to the children. Yuli said happily that Xiaoyu loved strawberries. When she was pregnant, her favorite food was strawberries, and when she was a ghost, Minjing wouldn't give her any strawberries. At that time, Yuli was very angry. She blamed Minjing for not understanding Xiaoyu's preferences. Now she could finally give Xiaoyu her favorite strawberries. Yuli happily gave the strawberries to Xiaoyu, but Minjing told Yuli that she didn't have to give her the strawberries. Yuli insisted politely and said that the strawberries were very fresh today, but Minjing still insisted that she wouldn't give them to Xiaoyu. At that moment, the other teachers came over and told Yuli that Xiaoyu was allergic to strawberries. Yuli was very surprised. It turned out that the one who really didn't understand her child was herself. Yuli felt very sad. At that moment, a child suddenly bit Xiaoyu. Yuli rushed over to see what was going on. Everyone was dumbfounded. Yuli's motherly love made her forget who she was at the moment. She instinctively cared for Xiaoyu. This made Minjing suspicious of Yuli. When Yuli reacted, she let go of Xiaoyu and left in embarrassment. Changhua felt sorry for Yuli. At night, Yuli went to Xianqing's restaurant. She blamed herself for her impulsiveness. Xianqing advised Yuli to tell Minjing the truth. Sooner or later, she'd have to raise Xiaoyu herself. When Yuli was hesitating, Minjing suddenly came to the restaurant.
Thank you for watching. I recommend you watch the full video titled Hi Bye Mama.